Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Find My Past Fridays Live. My name is Liam, and I'm from the social media team at Find My Past. The first Fridays Live, I've been able to say that, as you might remember, my last one was on my last day in the customer support team. So now, as I say, I am part of the social media team working with Ellie, who we have in the comments here today. So be sure to say hello to Ellie as well. As usual, let us know where you're tuning in from today. How is the weather looking? We all love a weather forecast here. Dundee, much and such the same as it has been over the past few weeks. Very dull, very grey, dry at the moment. We did have snow over the weekend. Not sure if there's any more snow planned over this weekend at all, but I was saying to people in work that it was quite good because there was snow on Saturday morning, and by the end of the weekend, it was all gone. You don't have that usual awkward, icy, slushy period in between as well. So very nice to see. That's why I like snow, when it just comes and goes. So let's have a look at who we have. We've got Gina from Lincolnshire, David over on YouTube from a very soggy Somerset again. I feel like it's going to be a bit of a recurrent theme here as well. So we'll see if we've got anyone with sunshine. Andrew doesn't have sunshine, got a few showers in Lancashire. The frost from earlier this week has gone. Been very frosty in Dundee as well, as I say, when it's not been raining, been some quite frosty mornings as well. Lynn from a very wet British Columbia. Jean is recovering from an op this morning. Hope I can concentrate. Hope everything went well, Jean. Wish you all the best in your recovery with that as well. No better way to recover than sitting watching some genealogy live on our Friday afternoon. And we've got Kim from Madrid, West Yorkshire. As I say, I'm feeling a little bit of a theme coming over here with the weather forecast. I feel like this time of year is going to be much and such the same, isn't it? We're all going to be kind of more or less the same, although I've just spied a comment to make us all jealous as well. Unusually sunny and warm, Roscoe, Illinois. 50 degrees or 10 degrees, as we would know. So 10 degrees, I would take that at the moment. It's been -4 some mornings here, so I would definitely take 10 degrees at the moment. Sue Moon's got a little bit of sun as well, less cold. Guildford in Surrey. Nice here, it's not cold, as it's been really chilly here as well, so we'll get there. It's 8th of December, time is marching on. We'll be back into spring, summer before we know it, fingers crossed. And Victoria from wet and chilly Suffolk. Good to have Liam to bring us some cheer. Glad you think so anyway, Victoria. We'll see how the hour goes anyway. Hopefully you're still saying that in 57 minutes time. I'm getting quite lapsed my question of the week. I realize I keep forgetting to put it in the description of the video, so I do apologize. I know there are always some kind of eagle-eyed viewers that like to get their answers in nice and quickly, so I do apologize. I'll give everyone an even keel today. And the question of the week, rarely to the title of the video, as is a bit of a spoiler, and also the blog if you've read that already and had a look at the new records, but kind of related, as I say, to what we're going to talk about. Have you ever written a book about your ancestors, or did any of your ancestors write a book perhaps? And if so, keep an eye on what we're going to be talking about in a little bit, because it may well be relevant to the research that you're doing. So yeah, if you ever written a book, or have any of your ancestors written a book, especially if it's one that we may know, an author of a book that we may have heard of, let us know in the comments, and we will come back later on today and see what everybody has got for us. Good stuff. So we will start off with the new records and see where that link that I am teasing there comes in. So first new records, we have 3 new updates, or 4 new updates, I should say, from the parish of Northampton. They have all been added to the England Roman Catholic parish records. So the parish baptisms, burials, marriages, and the congregational records as well, which I don't think I've actually had a chance to speak about on here before. So I was very excited to see them on the list today. As I did the last time, the name of the county I was speaking about last time has just totally gone out of my head for some reason. I do apologize. Whichever county I was speaking about last time, you may remember, I did a little bit of a roundup, some information about that county for, as I say, people like myself who geography maybe isn't your strong point. And we've got the overseas viewers as well. We've got British Columbia. I can see Toronto coming in the comments as well. So as I say, not everybody is always going to know where the counties in England, for example, are that we are talking about. So today, as I say, it is Northampton. So if you're curious, this is where Northampton sits on the map. Not sure about you, but I could not have put a pin anywhere near Northampton had I been asked to guess where that was in the map. As I say, English geography is not my strong point. I know the names mostly from working here. I think I've doubled the amount of English counties I've known since I started working here and dealing with things like the parish records, like the censuses, for example. But as I say, geographically, could not have told you that is where Northampton is. But that little red right in the middle there is where Northampton is on the map if you are curious. And it wouldn't be a Fridays Live without a historical map as well. So we've got a historical map of the county of Northamptonshire as well. So that is what it looks like. And I've also pulled some what I hope are fun facts about Northampton and Northamptonshire. So first of all, one I found quite interesting is Northampton is home to the biggest market square in England, which was established in 1189 around All Saints Church. So quite an interesting one there, especially going back to 1189 as well. It is also home to Silverstone Circuit, which I'm sure any Formula One or motor racing fans amongst us will know as well. It's home of the British Grand Prix. And we've also got some famous foods as well. Don't ask me what, other than the leek pie, don't ask me what goes into these. I was reading a few recipes, but it wasn't entirely clear. Seems to be a little bit of a kind of hotspot situation. But the foods include hock and dough, clangers, and the Earl Barton leek pie. Those are some famous foods from Northampton. As I say, you're going to have to look up the recipes yourself for more information because I'm not a big food guy myself, so a lot of it did kind of go over my head as well. And people from Northampton are known as Northamptonian, which is something I can't remember who we were speaking to about this. It might have been Ellie, or it might be my partner. I can't remember where we're speaking about what are people from Edinburgh called, I think it was. And something I found quite interesting is the names of people from a certain place as well. Like, for example, a village nearby where I grew up north is a place called Fauqueberge, and people from Fauqueberge are known as Fauquebarians, which is just quite a fun little thing. So if you do know any good ones, let us know in the comments as well. As I say, something that I am quite interested in, just a totally random thing. I may have mentioned that before even as well, that it is something that, as I say, always kind of catches my eye when I am looking into these things. And some famous Northamptonians, might be showing my age, as I say, with these. Some of these might be news to you, but we have Faye from Steps. You may remember the band Steps. We've got Tom York from Radiohead as well, maybe a little bit more cultured than Steps perhaps. A footballer, Ivan Toney, wouldn't be one of my lives if I didn't manage to shoehorn a footballer in there, footballer Ivan Toney, and comic book writer Alan Moore, who is known for V for Vendetta. You may have seen the film, or indeed you may be a comic book fan yourself, and Alan Moore is a name which you all recognise. And speaking of shoehorning, excuse the pun, people pointing out in the comments as well that Northampton is traditionally the home of much shoemaking. Andrew and Gina pointing that out as well. That used to be big in the shoe trade. I'm sure right there that it was where the kind of shoe trade in England kind of started anyway. I think it's also, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe tied into that, it might also be home to Dr. Martens, if I remember correctly, in my kind of whirlwind tour of Northampton I did in preparation for this. As I feel like Dr. Martens was the name that came up when I was looking into Northampton. But on to the records themselves. What have we added? We have got 9,383 new baptisms from 1775 to 1913. 1,288 new marriages from 1781 to 1913 again, all to 1913. Going to just stop saying that. I'll just say when they start from. You can see they all go up to 1913. We've got 1,547 new burials from 1834. And as I say, some confirmation records as well, 2,737 of them from 1838. And as I mentioned, they have all been added into the existing records collection, which is the England Roman Catholic Parish Records. So if you go via any of the search categories, your birth, marriage, death, and parish, they'll appear in there. And you can also go through the All Record Sets page as well and type the England Roman Catholic, keep wanting to say England Northampton, England Roman Catholic Parish Records, and you'll get a list of them there as well. And the parish list, you may have seen these before when you go through the All Records and you pick a specific collection like that one. There is a parish list and that has been updated with these records as well. And I should have a snippet of that to show you what I mean in a few slides' time. But this is, as I say, we all know what the parish baptisms, burials, and marriages look like by now. But as I say, I never actually spoke about the congregational records, I don't think, before. I don't think any of my Fridays Live I've ever actually had one of these added when I've been doing the new record. So quite excited here. This is what a congregational record or confirmation record, as this particular example is there. So we have the transcriptions for that and also the original images as well. And as you can see, the original image is in Latin. So I did do a Latin quiz a while ago. Hopefully you all remember that. You've all noted down your key phrases. But fear not, on the blog that Daisy wrote, she has included some translations of some of the keywords, not only for these ones, but for the general records as well. A lot of them are also in Latin too. So as I say, if you do need to brush up on your Latin, be sure to check Daisy's blog for some more information. And that is the parish list that I was talking about there. Excuse me. So that is the one for the confirmation records themselves, but the parish list does exist for all of the baptisms, burials, and the marriages as well. So if you are curious as to what parishes specifically have been added, those ones show all the records from the Northampton Archdiocese as well. Interestingly enough, when I was speaking to Ellie about these records that were being added, she remembered that a while ago she was visiting our scan and digitization facility down in Boston Spa, where the magic happens, where they scan all the records and send them away to be transcribed. So she actually had some video footage of the records in action and the scanning process going on there. So if you check our Instagram page after the live today, you will see some, as I say, behind the scenes action as to how these records have gone from the books in the Archdiocese to being made on the website, made available on the website. So as I say, after the live, be sure to check our Instagram page for that and give us a follow if you're not following us already as well. And next up, there was meant to be another slide in between there. I do apologize, but the next slide, we have also made some updates to the Irish Roman Catholic records as well. So there are 19,000 new and improved records. So as I say, basically just improved transcriptions, things where there's maybe information missing, there was a name missing, it might not have been coming up in the search previously when you were having a look at them. As I say, 19,000 of them have been improved with that sort of information. So you will get full transcriptions like this one that I put on the screen at the moment there with the full dates, spouse's name, spouse's address as well, the other party's address as well. So really fantastically detailed records in this collection as well. So definitely be sure to have a look at those as well if you have Irish ancestry, and especially if you've maybe struggled to find records in those marriages before. And that slide also isn't meant to be there, so I will just skip on there. So on to the new newspapers that we've added this week. We do actually only have one new newspaper added this week, but it is a really good one that everyone at Findmypast is very excited about, but no more excited than Rose, who you all know. Rose, as has been mentioned, she works in the newspapers. That is her speciality topic, and she is also big into her English literature. I think she did actually do that at uni or something similar. So English literature is her big thing. So seeing this title, The Bookseller, as it's called, being added on the website, as I say, we have a sort of weekly meeting where we talk about the new records that are being added and get some more information about them. And as I say, I've never seen Rose as excited as when she got a chance to speak about the Bookseller. I'm sure I'm not going to do it justice. I do have a few clippings that I've taken from there, but as I say, I'm not going to do it justice. Rose could probably talk for 2 whole sessions about this newspaper because it is just a really cool newspaper, and as I say, one that she is really interested in herself, which is always really nice to see as well when you get staff here really excited about something that's being added. So the Bookseller is what it is on the tin. Essentially, it is a magazine or a book newspaper is the word I'm looking for, about books, about upcoming books, book reviews, what's happening in the literature world as well. So if that is something that, like Rose, is of interest to you, definitely have a look at this title, because as I say, there is some really cool stuff in there as well. And I think we speak about this quite a lot when we're mentioning newspapers, but some of the things that you're going back and reading articles of the time in this capacity, knowing what we know now and knowing the books that are featured in here and the way in which they're featured as well, is just really cool to look back on as well. And there is sort of all sorts of things that you'll find in here as well. So you've got things, as I say, there are a lot of little adverts as well about the books that are upcoming or due to be published. And as I say, ones that, looking back now, we know are very historical novels or very popular books, would go on to be quite revolutionary books as well. And as I say, it's just really cool going back and seeing the articles about these books before they were published. For example, this is a snippet from February 1917, which announces that the Egoist Limited are due to be publishing A Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. That was the UK publication, I should mention. It was published in Ireland before then. And we also have another one, 1984, which I remember doing at school when I did my higher English, I think it was, standard grade English maybe, 1984. But as I say, obviously a very quite revolutionary book, looking back on it now as well. And you get sort of adverts like the one on the left was one saying that the book is due to be published. And then an advert a few weeks later saying that before its publication, we advertised this book and now it's been known as the novel of the year. And you can see it sold 19,000 copies in its first week, which is quite incredible, really. Quite a lot of copies to be sold in a first week of a book. So rave reviews for 1984 back in the time, as well, as much as it is loved these days too. You also get some really nice illustrations. I talk all the time about illustrations that are in the books, in the magazines. Keep calling them books. I think I've got books in the mind with this bookseller. In the newspapers, always talk about the illustrations. And you get some really nice ones taken from books as well. This is one from the illustrated copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. There was a couple different illustrations, but I only snipped one of them so you could kind of get the full picture of it as well and see, as I say, all of the detail that's in there as well. So really nice one to have too. And you also get some kind of more modern stuff as well. So there's there is 150 years of this title being added. So you can go all the way back to James Joyce, all the way up to things like Margaret Atwood, for example. And you can see this is just a sort of roundup of the press and the promotion that Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale has been done. Things like she has been featured in interviews in The Guardian. She's been on Radio 4. She's had a special event at the Show Theatre in London. All sorts of different stuff about the books and also about the authors themselves as well, which is really cool too. Part of, as I say, maybe seeing why I was asking if any of your ancestors had written books. This would definitely be one for you to have a look at as well. Still got a couple more, as I say, I could have, even me myself, I could have spoken for hours about this, but there is just so much in here as well. And as I say, things that you kind of look back on and see books mentioned and you think, what a historical book that was, and this is an article about it when it is being published, like The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, of course, one that I'm sure we're all familiar with as well. And that is the end of my slides. I thought there was one more, so that is the end of it. But yeah, as I say, a lot of stuff in that bookseller. Really interesting one that we talk about rabbit holes quite a lot. Definitely one you could spend quite a while down a rabbit hole of, because even I was just kind of looking at it flicking through. Rose has also written a fantastic blog over on the British Newspaper Archive about it as well, which I kind of stole a lot of that from, so I do apologise, Rose. But definitely, as I say, if it is something that interests you, have a look at it. Also have a look at Rose's blog on the British Newspaper Archive, and also Daisy's on Findmypast as well. She's spoken quite in detail about the paper itself as well. So as I say, if it is one that interests you, definitely go back and have a look. And funnily enough, the last time I was on, we did speak about sort of more specialist titles, like the horse riding one, the fishing one, the sporting titles, and all the cycling ones, I think it was. So another little tie-in with that as well. It's kind of nice to see papers like that getting added to the website, more niche ones as well, alongside the kind of regional or national ones, whichever it might be as well. And just to mention as well as the bookseller, it's kind of stolen the show a little bit this week in terms of new records being added between the parish records. It is still the bookseller, as I say, is being the popular one and the one that everyone here has certainly been the most excited about. But we have also updated the Ballymena Weekly Telegraph as well. 1894 has been added to our existing collection of that title as well. Good stuff. Hope you all like my Findmypast water bottle, by the way. I was down in London a couple of weeks ago with Ellie and the team, and I was going to say stolen, but maybe borrowed it from the London office when I was in having a look at the London office. So very good water bottle indeed. Need to stay on brand for our Fridays live as well. So we will have a look at the question of the week. I know we've had a few late joiners in as well, so I will have pop that on the screen as well. I did just want to mention one comment that I seen from a late joiner as I was presenting there. If anyone wants to feel a little bit better about the weather that they've got here, poor Gordon has been late because he's been clearing 4 inches of snow from the driveway. So good shift, Gordon. You'll need to let us know where that is as well. It's got 4 inches of snow. That is a lot, as I say. Even when we had snow on Saturday, it must only have been 2 inches absolute maximum, I think it was, before it was gone. Definitely didn't need cleared like that. So as I say, hope you are recovering from that out in the cold and enjoying being back inside warm, hopefully with a cup of tea or something as well. And I think Linda's looking for a water bottle herself as well. Missed marketing opportunity for water bottles. I know I would love to have, there are some more in the London office, I will say. So maybe next time, if everyone's well behaved, I can steal a few for us all as well and get us all drinking from the same bottles on Fridays live as well. Little update from Gordon as well. He is in Okotoks in Alberta. So yeah, that makes sense actually. Now you mentioned 4 inches of snow. I know you get it quite bad over there during the winter. So I hope you are all staying safe and staying warm in that quite extreme weather as well. So for the late joiners or anyone else who may have missed it earlier, just a quick recap of the question of the week. It was following on from the bookseller. Have you ever written a book about your ancestors, or did any of them write a book themselves? And we've had quite a lot of answers coming in here. I'm always kind of at the presenting, keeping an eye on the comments on the right hand side, and I always kind of see very handily people are really good at putting QOTW at the start, so I know it's a question of the week, so I can kind of mark it to come back to earlier. So I really like having a look through them again, because as I say, I know there's been an answer, but I don't always know what the actual answer is. So it's a nice kind of surprise for me as well. Let's have a look. So Nicole has found a mention of one of my ancestors, another good one as well. We'll add a third variable onto the question of the week. Maybe you've seen your ancestors mentioned in a book themselves as well. Say, we'll add a third variable in there, because as I say, always interesting to find your ancestors in a book, like Nicole did as well when she found a mention of the Stud family in Wales, only like a paragraph, but still interesting. And in another book on Pat Collins' amusements, my great uncle gave an interview about his family, and my great granddad. Really nice, as I say. Even just reading the book and coming across something about your family, or having that sort of interview that one of your ancestors did, is a really cool thing to come across as well. So really nice, Nicole. Gillian came across a diary or journal from a great aunt. It was good to read firsthand what their day-to-day lives were as well. Yeah, that's amazing. Imagine having a sort of that day-to-day description of what their lives was like. That's something that you may get snippets of from the records, whether you know where they were at a certain time from the censuses. You might get snippets from newspapers, but that sort of day-to-day, just telling you what she did in her day, whether it was going to work or what the kids were up to that day or whatever it might have been, really interesting to have as well. So a diary or journal is something I would love from any of my ancestors out there. If I managed to come across one of them, that would be something really cool to have. Janet has done a bit of writing herself. She's written articles for various family history society journals. Very nice indeed, Janet. Writing is something that, funnily enough, I actually used to want to be a journalist when I was young. So writing is something I've always kind of enjoyed, and I know I still get to do a few blog posts on the website as well. So still something I get to do a little bit of day to day as well. Lynn has not written a book, but has written proofs, because all of the trees I have seen in certain ancestors don't have these connections, or they are the wrong connections. Yeah, different kind of writing, but always very handy to do as well. Just kind of writing things down, writing things out in a list form or whatever it might be, always helps as well. Gives another perspective on things, especially like you say, if you're seeing trees and connections are missing or connections don't look quite right, just writing it out in front of you can always be a helpful thing to do. As I say, puts a kind of different perspective on things as well. definitely ancestor has written a book. She has a first cousin, Emily Searchfield, born 1844, Newark, Wiltshire, who was a schoolmistress and author of novels mainly with a religious moral theme. I've managed to find a copy of one of them on 8books. That's really cool as well. One thing, knowing that your ancestor wrote a book, but being able to have a copy of the book as well, definitely that is a really special thing to be able to have too. So really nice indeed. Let's have a look and see. Andrew, someone in his one name study, was the first writing master at Ackworth School in Yorkshire. He published a book on handwriting exercises. So it was people like that were making our lives a misery back in school when we were learning cursive writing and everything like that. So an interesting type of book to have written as well, something a little bit different too. And who else have we got? Got a lot of answers coming in. I'll stop in a second so we can move on and then come back to the rest and give other people time to come in as well. Jean hasn't written anything herself, but my second cousin, called Edward Allen Domville, wrote a book on my Domville family called We Came with the Conqueror from my maternal side, and on my maternal side, my family is mentioned in Catherine Merriweather's book, Our Family Links to Showmen's Guild, which I have been able to supply with some photos and information. So that's really cool as well. As both sides of the coin as well, that your second cousin has written a book about the family, and then someone else has written a book that your family's mentioned in, and been able to give them those photos and information. I'm sure Kath was very grateful for that assistance as well, especially the photographs as well. Not something that can be easy to come across when you're writing a book like that. So as I say, I'm sure she was very helpful, very thankful for your help with that too. Good stuff. So as I say, we'll take a break from the question of the week and we'll move on, and then we will have time to do a few more before the end of the session. So very quickly now, I'm going to talk about our family tree. So you may have seen, if you do have a family tree on Findmypast, have used that in the past, you may have noticed recently that there has been some changes. Things have sort of moved about slightly as well. So thought I would just do a kind of quick overview as to how things are looking at the moment and where some key features that maybe have been moved can be found now as well. And when I'm doing this, if you do have sort of any questions about the tree or anything else you would like to see covered in a similar sort of fashion, a quick kind of refresher or update, then do please let us know as well. Obviously, we have had people on in the past talking about features with the newspapers specifically. But as I say, if you do have any questions, I will certainly do my best, maybe put myself in the spot a little bit here, but I will certainly do my best to answer them, or we can refer them to be answered for you. But I will share my screen here, and hopefully you're all seeing a family tree. So first disclosure, please do not judge my genealogical skills too heavily on this part of my tree. It is quite a tedious link to me, and one that I haven't worked on for quite a while. So I was still quite new to family history when I did this, and I've not come back to this particular part of the tree. So if anything doesn't look quite right to you, as I say, please do not judge me on it. It's been a while since I've done this part of the tree. For illustrative purposes only, I will say. So as I say, if you do have a family tree on Findmypast, then you will be familiar with this screen here. This is a sort of general family tree view that you are looking at. And you can see who we're focused on is Maggie Fleming. So if you click on Maggie Fleming, this bit on the left-hand side of the profile of the page comes up, and this has slightly changed as well as to how things actually look and appear on here. Although I will say that I do find it much easier now to see the information and also edit the information as well. If you were to click into any of that boxes, and you can then just type in a name and you will see that it's saved there. But I'll just change that back, because as I say, if I don't change it back, when I do eventually come back to this tree, it's going to totally throw me completely. So you can just edit the information that you see here, and you'll get the little notification to say that it has been saved. One thing that has moved, you may have noticed in the past that when you scroll down to the bottom of this window, you got a section here that would let you search for other family trees on the website, or search for records that the person maybe appears in on the website as well. That feature is still available. It's just in these two little buttons at the top here. So you've got the other trees. I don't think Maggie appears in another tree actually. No, she doesn't. So she won't appear there, but you've got the other records as well. So you may, as it says, not everything will appear as a hint. You always need to do your own research, as I'm sure I don't need to tell any of you. and then you can just view the results for any of the particular categories that came up and see for that particular category. That was travel and migration, for example. So as I say, that is still there as well. One other little thing that I will just mention is the stories feature. If you haven't used stories in the past, I would definitely recommend having a look at it. Really cool stuff on there. I'll show you this one here now. It just kind of shows you some sort of like historical context around the life of your ancestors. So for example, when Maggie was turning 16 years old, this is what a newspaper was looking like. You can click to browse the newspaper to see what was happening at the time. As I say, I think it's always helpful to have that sort of historical context around your ancestors' lives. I know sometimes I'm quite bad for not sort of dotting the lines, crossing the lines. I totally forgot what the saying was there. But sort of doing that when you like think my ancestor was born here and died here, what happened in their lifespan, what major historical events, or just other little things as well. For example, there's things that I certainly probably wouldn't ever have heard about if it wasn't for things like stories like this one, for example, that Maggie would have been 22 when Earth passed through the tail of Halley's Comet, and newspapers speculated whether it would poison the planet. As I say, not a news story I'd heard of in the past, but a nice little tidbit to have and a really cool illustration there as well. So as I say, if you haven't already used stories, definitely recommend having a look at them. They are there on the tree. I was highlighting the wrong thing there, but they are there on the tree. Something that has kind of changed appearance, I would say, with this new look is the add relative button as well. I think that used to be a sort of bigger button round about here. I'm really bad for when things change. As soon as I see the new version, the old version just goes completely out of my head and I completely forgot what it actually looked like. But I'm sure it was a slightly larger button around here, but you still got the add relative if you need to add a new relation to that person, and can do so with the buttons there. And then that would just be to view the family tree. So if it wasn't Maggie I was looking at, for example, if it was her husband George, I could click on him and then view the tree from his perspective with that button there. But the profile is where the sort of real changes have come into play. This might look a little bit different for any of you who have used our family tree in the past. You've still got the timeline there on the left-hand side, but then this right-hand side of things has just kind of been tidied up a little bit as well. There's you've now got things to investigate, which is basically just the three buttons that I mentioned before: the stories, the search and records, and the search and trees. And the facts and events is another one that you may have seen in the past. As I say, personally, I think this is a really nice change. I think this looks a lot clearer as to the facts and events. It's just listed a really nice way. Still got all the key information about the record that the information comes from, any sources from the records themselves. You can edit them, you can add more sources to them as well. And if you needed to delete anything as well or edit them, you can do so with there, or also with the pencil there. And you could delete something like a census, for example. Like when I opened up Maggie's profile initially, I noticed I had a newspaper article which had been added to her quite a while ago. And on second glance was quite clear it was not her. So I maybe just added that to come back to a later date and forgot about it. So I just had to delete that from there. Media is just the same as well. You've still got any records that have been attached to the profile. The notes section looks a little bit different as well. If you do have any sort of text that you want to add, any kind of contextual information about the person, then you can do so with the add note button there. And then you just type the note there. We test for Fridays Live. Click save, and then it appears there as well with your notes. So let's say if you've got any information you want to type up about your ancestor, the notes is a really nice way. And I think, as I say, another one that looks a lot better now as well. You can edit it and you can also delete it as well. Something I was going to mention that when I talked about the media, just on the topic of notes and any text information, I saw this mentioned a while ago on Facebook. So you can actually upload PDFs to the profile of a family tree as well. I'm not sure if a lot of people were aware of that in the past, but you can upload PDFs to the family tree as well. So if you have any, I know quite a lot of certificates, for example, would be saved in a PDF, or if you've got a page from a journal or anything like that, for example, then you can upload PDFs as well as the usual records and media files, your pictures, for example, too. Hints, unfortunately, Maggie doesn't have any hints on her profile at the moment, but that is where they would show. And just to mention as well, because I see that Andrew has mentioned this, and this was one of the big changes that I know caused a little bit of confusion for some people as well. So you're certainly not alone here, Andrew, as to where to see the view relatives in the full profile. So you're quite right that usually, or there used to be, I should say, one of these tabs was for relations, and that is where you would see the relatives which that person had attached to them. So now you would just have to go to that button there and then edit relationships. And then you'll get this screen with the direct relations for that individual as well. When you can click show children in the family, you can also see the relationships. You can change relationship types as well. If Charlotte maybe was her adopted mother, for example, you can do that there. Or if, when I eventually come back to this family tree, I realize that one of these children is incorrect, I can also remove a child from that particular family on there as well. And then just another little comment as well. Good timing with the comment again. Jean is saying that she would find it helpful if a tree told her what relationship the person is to me that I am researching. So that is something that you can also do. So another thing that had been changed quite recently, and that was another point of confusion for some people. So the kinship calculator is what you will be looking for there, Jean. That is where you will find out how the person is related to you. So if you go onto the person's profile, as I did there, go to the three dots, edit relationships, then you will get the kinship calculator. And as I say, it was kind of temporarily removed whilst they made some changes and updated things in the background, but has now been restored. And I know a lot of people, myself included, are very happy to see that, because family relationships is something that I struggle with to work out in my head all the time. And especially, for example, when I show you the relationship that Maggie is to me, I would never have worked that out myself. If it wasn't for the kinship calculator, I would never know that Maggie was my great grand aunt in law. As I said, it is quite a tedious connection. You'll have to bear with me on that one. But as I say, really handy as well. Or even just sometimes you lose track as to who someone is, how am I related to this person again. So another really good one as well. And Andrew is asking if it's possible to download pics at full resolution again. Have been thumbnails only. I will need to double check that one there. As I said, don't have any pictures attached to Maggie at this particular moment. I don't think that it was just records. So I'll need to double check that one for you, Andrew, and see what the resolution on the pictures is looking like again. Because yeah, like you say, sometimes when you clicked on them, it would be a slightly lower size, lower resolution. So I will need to double check that one for you and see how that is looking exactly. And yeah, I think that was more or less the kind of update on the tree. As I say, that was what had changed, was that a view of the profile, and especially things like the kinship calculator, the view relatives that Andrew spoke about as well, and Jean has said the kinship calculator too. So just thought I'd give a kind of brief overview. It is a work in progress. I will say there are sort of more updates, more improvements to come as well. So as I mentioned, we've had people from the product team on in the past. I'm sure we can get someone on again to run us through them once it is fully complete. But as I say, that was just sort of a bit of a refresher in the interim as well, because as I say, I know a lot of those features, like I mentioned, particularly the kinship calculator was a fan favorite, and a lot of people in Findmypast itself were very keen for that to be restored. So thought I would just point out where that one in particular was, and the relationships as well, because that is one that had moved as well. Perfect. So, as I said, just a quick refresher. Hope that was helpful. And like I say, I'm sure we could pull someone in the product team's arms to come on and give us a full, more complete run through once they have completed their work on that. What time are we on? We are on 22:05, so we will have another look at some question of the week answers. Always a struggle to remember where I got up to with the question of the week answers that I had. Showman's Guild, I remember that one. I hadn't done Kim's yet. Yeah, perfect. As I say, get lost in them sometimes. But back to the question of the week. Just a reminder, actually, because if people have joined since then, question of the week: have you written a book about your ancestors, or did any of them write a book? Or as a third caveat, have you ever found your ancestors named in a book, whether by name or just the family in general, perhaps? So back to Kim's answer. So Kim has been writing a book about her great-grandfather's life. Then a fifth great-grandmother's husband wrote poetry for the Ladies magazine in the early 1780s. Before that, my eighth great-grandfather's cousin wrote sermons that were published for the Church of England. Very nice. A very, very storied family history when it comes to the writing then, Kim. And very nice to see that you're keeping the tradition going and writing a book about your great-grandfather's life as well. It'd be really interesting to hear more about that when you're finished that up as well. That'd be really cool. And Suman, 3 times great-grandfather, didn't write books that I know of, but he has written a lot of articles for the Synod, being a minister of the Scotch Church in North Shields, before becoming the minister of the Free Church in Wick in Scotland. So another, all sorts of types of writing here. We've had books about family, sermons, poems, all sorts of stuff in there. So really nice one as well, something a little bit different too. Ellen has not written a book personally, but distant cousins have written 2 about my mum's paternal Witter family. One was published in 1929 and the other in 1992. Have found them great references. Really cool to have not just one book, but 2 books, especially so far apart as well. And you can imagine sort of new information that would have come to light in that sort of 60-year period as well. So really nice to have, as I say, not just one, but 2 books as well. And yeah, it'd be really nice to hear more about that and kind of what things you were finding in them as well. And as I say, a really nice guide to have for your own research too. A lot of good answers coming in today. Isabel, not written about my family yet, wrote a couple articles for the A Few Forgotten Women project, which has given me a bit of inspiration to get started. Very nice. Not familiar with that project, never heard of that before, so I will need to have a look into that as well. Sounds really nice. Nice to hear people are writing about the family history as well and keeping on with the writing too. Jeff's great-great-uncle W.H. Oakley wrote a book on Guildford during the Great War, and I have a copy. Very nice indeed. That's something really kind of niche topic to have, Guildford during the Great War, but imagine if your ancestors were from Guildford, then there must be a wealth of information in there, kind of like what I was saying about the stories and that historical context that it provides you with. But not only having the book, but knowing that your great-great-uncle actually wrote the book as well must be especially really cool to have. We've got 2 more written, more may have come in I've not quite seen yet. We are Nicole again, not really a book, but when looking for my great-granddad's army record, I had a personal letter from him being sent to the army asking to be put back if he was needed towards the end of the war. So again, another type of writing there. We talked about diaries and poems and sermons and all sorts of stuff, but personal letters as well. Something that, again, I don't have any for my own ancestors, but I think that would be a really special thing to have, seeing not only their handwriting, that you can maybe see that on records that exist online anyway, but you would get a real feel for the sort of person, I think, when you see how the person spoke as well, what kind of language they used and how they wrote things out. That would be a nice thing to have as well. And Gordon was the editor for the Chinook magazine at the Alberta Family History Society, wrote an article for the Newfoundland Advertiser, wrote an article for the East of London Family History Society. So very nice, both sides of the pond covered there, Gordon, with your writing as well. Really cool, be really nice to see some of those bits of writing that you've done as well. So really cool, as I say, nice to see people are writing about their family history as well. Always nice to see too. Let's see. Let's have a look. So do you have some more comments about the tree as well? Linda making a comment about the family view rather than pedigree. So when you're in pedigree view and then you go to a hint, it goes back to the family view is what you're saying. So I will note that down, or maybe Ellie can do it for me if I can ask her nicely to note that down, then I can pass that on as feedback. The team are always looking for feedback on this as well, so I will definitely note that down and just giving that a quick test. And you're right enough there, Linda, so I'd say I will feed that back for you and yourself as well, Andrew. Thank you for checking that up for me too, with the media files too. I will get that noted and passed on to the team. I know what you mean, Linda. A lot of people do like the pedigree view as well. It's one thing that, especially like that side of the tree that I showed there, got a lot of kids going sideways, people that are no relation to myself whatsoever. So I like the pedigree sometimes when you just get that direct line only, you're not getting lost in all these siblings and cousins and all sorts of things that are coming up there. And I can see Ellie is passing them both on. So thank you very much indeed, Ellie. That has saved me a job for when we finish up here today. Good stuff. So we're only on 4:46. You can see we do have another question of the week coming in from Isabel again. So my mum wrote her memories of growing up in Oldham. It finished as she moved to Coventry, so I have nothing written by her of life during Coventry in World War II. So that's kind of what we're saying about the Guildford during the war as well, that sort of historical context of the area that they grew up in, but especially when it was your mum that wrote her memories down, and having that sort of knowing what life was really like for her, not only as a place in general, but for her, and especially during World War II as well. That would have been a fascinating time period to be covered. As I say, I'm sure there's stuff that you can find online in the newspapers about Coventry during World War II, but like you mentioned, having that written by your mum in Oldham, would have been really nice to have a similar thing for Coventry in World War II as well. So, but as I say, still a really nice thing to have as well, that sort of contextual information, I like to say, about your family and the time they grew up in, the time they lived in, where they lived in, what that was like during a particular time in history is all really important stuff as well, and can sometimes get lost, I think, when you're doing your research. Yeah, I know I'm bad for it, like I mentioned when I was talking about the stories, that I don't always have my sort of finger on what was happening during this person's life and the things that happened, the moments in history that they would have seen, the wars, the presidents, who was prime minister at the time, whatever it might have been, advances in technology. As I say, it's something I know I'm, as I say, bad for kind of losing sight of, but really interesting to have too. I will look at wrapping up in the next couple of minutes. So if you do have any last minute question of the week, why do I keep saying ancestors? Something about Findmypast, working for Findmypast. I can't say the word answers, almost out there, without automatically going into ancestors. Answers. Any last minute question of the week, answers, do please feel free to fire them in quickly before we wrap up for the weekend. So Victoria says, an Italian poet and photographer has published several books. One of them featured a poem written about my great-grandmother and how she used to look out for her missing son in World War II. The poem makes me cry each time I read it, as it hits a chord of a mother's love that never dies and never gives up hope. So that is a really nice one to have as well. To say another different sort of thing to have, not a book about your ancestor, but a poem about your ancestor, and like you say, a sort of a really touching one like that as well, which poems like that can be quite emotional regardless of a connection, but when you know it's about your great-grandmother, has that sort of that extra element to it as well, Victoria. So thank you very much indeed for sharing that. As I say, it's a really nice one to have as well, and I think a really nice one to finish on as well, to be honest. As I say, that is finished on an emotional note, but a happy note as well. As I say, a nice thing to have for your ancestor too. Good stuff. So as I say, I think we will finish up there for today. I don't think I'm back on Fridays Live before Christmas, so it might be a little bit too early to say Happy Christmas, and I'm sure I will be in the comments one day before then as well. So I won't wish you anything with Christmas just yet. As I say, we'll save that. No one said Happy Christmas to me just yet, so I always wait for someone to get their first one into me first before I start dishing them out. So I will save that, as I say, for comments near the time when I speak to you all again. But as always, thank you all very much indeed for joining me on another Friday. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. For those of us with the rubbish weather, fingers crossed that improves. If we can get the temperature up to double digits over the weekend, that would be fantastic. But whatever you are doing, make sure you stay safe, stay warm, and have a really nice weekend. And I will speak to you all very soon.